There are massive playoff implications between the Bills and Steelers in Week 13. I'll tell you how the Bills can win the game today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Well, folks, welcome in. We got to get ready for the Bills' Week 13 opponent, the challenges they present, and what the Bills need to do to deal with them. And we're a little bit out of order this week. The Bills played on Thursday last week. We have Thanksgiving this week, so we're working around all of that. So normally the primer is the Friday episode. Well, this week it's the Wednesday episode, and then we'll do crossover Thursday for Thursday. But let's dive into this matchup, a big one. The Bills are on the road in Week 13 to face the Pittsburgh Steelers. The game will be played on Sunday, November 30th at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can watch the game on CBS. Jim Nantz is on the play-by-play. Tony Romo is your game analyst, and Tracy Wolfson is the sideline reporter. This will be the 31st all-time meeting between the Bills and Steelers. The Bills are 13-17 all-time against Pittsburgh. They have won the last two. They've won 4 of the last 5. In fact, Sean McDermott against Mike Tomlin, right? That's always a big storyline because they were teammates at William and Mary. Sean McDermott is 4-1 so far against Mike Tomlin. This year, the Bills are 7-4. The Steelers are 6-5. Their 6 wins have come against the Jets, Patriots, Vikings, Browns, Colts, and Bengals. Their losses to the Seahawks, Bengals, Packers, Chargers, and Bears. Now, this is a big game. This is a really important game. The Bills are 7-4. They're currently the number 7 seed in the AFC playoffs. That's the last seed. Well, the Steelers and the Texans are the 8 and 9 seeds. They're both 6-5. And as you know, the Bills do not have the tiebreaker over the Texans. And so right now, you are playing with fire here in terms of making the postseason, especially if you can't pull this one off against Pittsburgh, where the two teams that are fighting for the last seed that are closest to you, you'd have head-to-head losses to them. So the Bills got to get this one taken care of on Sunday. The head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we said, is Mike Tomlin. He's 53 years old. It's his 19th season in Pittsburgh as their head coach. Has a record of 189, 112, and 2. And in his entire tenure now, this is his 19th season. In his 18 seasons to this point, he's never had a losing record. They've been to the playoffs quite a bit. They have an 8-11 record in the playoffs. They have lost their last 5 playoff games. And so 12 playoff appearances in 18 seasons so far. 8 of those 12, one and done in the postseason. They were the Super Bowl champions under Mike Tomlin in 2008. They were the AFC champions in 2010. The quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers is Aaron Rodgers. And what's interesting about this Tomlin-McDermott series is that this is going to be the 5th different starting quarterback for Pittsburgh in the 6 meetings. It was Duck Hodgins. Then you had 2 against Ben Roethlisberger, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and now this time it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, who is 41 years old, and he turns 42 next week. He was a first-round pick, number 24 overall, out of Cal by the Green Bay Packers in 2005. Spent 18 years with the Packers, spent 2 with the Jets, and now he is on the Steelers. 6'2", 223 pounds. He started 251 career games has a record as a starting quarterback of 159, 91, and 1. So far this year, he's completing 66% of his passes, 197 passing yards per game. That is very low for Aaron Rodgers. 19 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a passer rating of 97.7. Looking at his advanced metrics this year, he is 25th in EPA per dropback. That's minus 0.06 expected points added per dropback. That's 25th among the 32 starters. He throws deep on 9% of his throws. That's 24th in terms of frequency. On those deep throws this year, he's 7 for 25 for 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Yards after catch is a huge part of their passing game. 67% of Aaron Rodgers' passing yards have come after the catch this year. That is number one, and it's number one by 7%. Throws to his first read 67% of the time. That's 11th. His average time to throw is 2.42 seconds. That's very fast. That's 5th highest in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers' catchable ball rate is very good at 79%, 3rd highest in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers can still throw accurate footballs. That's still on the menu for him. Drops have been an issue for the Steelers. 6.2% drop rate. That's 8th highest in the NFL. Pressure, 31% pressure rate. That's 28th. That's 5th lowest. Again, he gets the ball out quick. Play action, not a huge part of the menu here. 23% play action rate. That's 24th in the NFL. But they run a ton of screens. That's 15%, 5th highest in the NFL. So Aaron Rodgers, he missed last week against the Bears with a wrist injury. Sounds like he's on track to make his return to the field this week against the Buffalo Bills. And so we'll talk more about this Steelers offense, the weapons that they have, and what the keys are for the Bills defense here on the other side of it. So folks, be sure to stick with me.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back, folks. Let's talk more about this Steelers offense that is coordinated by Arthur Smith. He's 43 years old. It's his second season in Pittsburgh as their offensive coordinator. Prior to that, he was the Falcons head coach. He was the head coach of the Falcons 2021 through 2023. Prior to that, 2 years as the Titans offensive coordinator under Mike Vrabel. Metrically this year, they're scoring 25 points per game. That's 11th in the NFL. They pass it 58% of the time. They run it 42%. That's 15th in pass rate. That's 16th in rush rate. So they're middle of the pack in both. They're 17th in EPA per play on offense, 18th in EPA per pass, 15th in EPA per rush. They convert 40% of their third downs. That's 12th highest in the NFL. They're 67% in the red zone, which is very good. That's 3rd highest in the NFL. Let's talk about their personnel. Their wide receivers, the main guy here is DK Metcalf. Now, he left the game last week against the Bears with an ankle injury, but he finished, and I think he's on track to play against Buffalo. He's their go-to guy in the passing game. He's by far their leading target getter. And DK Metcalf, you've probably seen him play. He's huge, right? He's just a big, huge dude that has unbelievable pull-away speed. So big, physical, straight-line, fast receiver. And he'll get a lot of targets, right? That's their best player in the passing game. Their other receiver that they work in is Calvin Austin. He's very small, like 5'8", 165 pounds, but he is really, really quick. Really quick. Lightning in a bottle. He's got pull-away speed, so he's a player that you have to deal with in terms of that jitterbug type guy that can really shake loose in tight quarters and, has a lot of speed vertically. He's also a guy that serves as their punt returner. So the Bills will have to deal with Calvin Austin and the shiftiness that he brings. I really like him. They also have Roman Wilson, is a recent draft pick, hasn't really done much, and Ben Skowronek, who's more of a special teams, big-bodied blocker type player. And so the reality with the Steelers and the receivers is that this is a tight end offense. They run a ton of 12, 13, 22 personnel, 21 or 20. Actually, they'll do some 23, but they'll do mostly 4 tight ends sometimes, right? That's part of what they have. They will play a bunch of tight ends. In fact, 61% of their passing plays, they have 2 tight ends on the field at least. So it's DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin. But then at tight end, it's Pat Friermuth, Jonnu Smith, and Darnell Washington. Pat Friermuth, at one point, I thought he was one of the best young tight ends in the NFL. Hasn't had as much volume lately, but certainly a very capable all-around tight end. They have Jonnu Smith, who you should know from his time with the Patriots and Dolphins. Had a really good year for Miami last year, and then the Dolphins traded for him and extended him. He's been pretty quiet. I think he's actually averaging like less than 7 yards per catch this year. He's a good yards after catch tight end. He's kind of a dump and run type player. He's very good in the screen game. Not a guy that's really going to cut loose down the field, but he can catch and run at a high level. And then Darnell Washington is 311 pounds. He's like 6'6", tons of length, crazy athleticism for his size. And he blocks and he catches the ball quite a bit as well. He's got 28 targets so far this year. So he's not like completely not a factor in the passing game and just a blocker. They'll throw it to him as well. So all 3 tight ends you have to deal with: Pat Friermuth, Jonnu Smith, and Darnell Washington. And then the running backs, Jaylen Warren is the main attraction here. Dense build. His legs are always moving. I really like him. He's a highly competitive player. He's not overly dynamic in terms of physical upside, but he's got a low center of gravity. He can catch the ball. He's got a little bit of juice to him. I think he's a good running back. And then his running mates are Kenneth Gainwell and Caleb Johnson. Kenneth Gainwell is a player you might remember from the Eagles, kind of a gadgety type guy that can catch the ball a little bit, can run it, can do some jet sweeps, that type of stuff. And then Caleb Johnson, they picked out of Iowa this year on day 2 of the draft. And he was kind of a polarizing prospect because of the production, but also just not super dynamic, right? There's just not a lot of exciting physical traits in terms of movement skills. He's got pretty good size, but doesn't have the quickest of feet, doesn't have much in the way of pull-away speed. And so you like his vision, you like his contact balance, but he doesn't have much else and has really quickly not become a factor despite, some belief that he was drafted to be the next Le'Veon Bell type player for them. He has not come close to that. So this has really become a Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell backfield, and we'll see what the future holds for Caleb Johnson. When it comes to carries, Jaylen Warren has 141, and then it's Kenneth Gainwell with 71, Caleb Johnson with 22. When it comes to target distribution, DK Metcalf is number 1 with 70. Then it's Kenneth Gainwell, actually number 2 in targets with 48. Calvin Austin has 42 at number 3. Jonnu Smith has 41 at number 4. Pat Friermuth, 32 at 5. 6th is Jaylen Warren at 28. Also Darnell Washington with 28. And then it's Roman Wilson with 19. So they'll spread it around a little bit, but it's mostly DK Metcalf, a fair amount of Kenneth Gainwell. They throw the ball to these tight ends, and then Calvin Austin. Let's talk about this offensive line. They're not going to have their left tackle, Broderick Jones, ruled out for this game already by Mike Tomlin. They have a good swing tackle. Calvin Anderson can come in, and he's a stable backup type player. So it's not like a guy that's never played or a guy that has been underwhelming when he's gotten opportunities. He's a pretty good swing tackle. Their left guard is excellent. Isaac Seumalo, free agent signing from the Eagles a few years ago. He's a quality starting left guard in the NFL. Their center is Zach Frazier. Boy, he looks good. Young player, recent second-round draft pick that is quickly becoming a top center in the NFL. The right guard looks good as well. Mason McCormick, another young player they drafted. The same year they drafted Frazier, if I'm not mistaken. Small school, I think he's out of South Dakota State, and he looks like he's going to be a good starter for a long time. Then their right tackle is Troy Fatanu, first-round pick recently, and he looks like he's got a bright future. I liked him a ton coming out of Washington. Had some injuries as a rookie, but he looks like he's going to be an answer for them. So they got a good young offensive line. Their typical left tackle is Broderick Jones, another first-round pick. So they've really assembled a nice group here with recent picks. I know that Jones has been pretty shaky to this point. In fact, I'd say he's probably their worst starter. And so if they're going to be without a starter, it would probably be him, and they have a good backup in Calvin Anderson. So a good-looking young offensive line. So what are my keys for the Bills' defense against this offense? Number one, tackle. I know that that's a really basic thing for me to say, but you have to tackle well against Pittsburgh. They're number one in percentage of receiving yards that come after the catch. They're seventh in percentage of rushing yards that come after contact. They're number 4 in missed tackles forced per run. This is a good team at making people miss and getting in yards after contact and forcing missed tackles. And that's a big part of their equation overall offensively. So this is a game where you got to put your big boy britches on and make tackles, right? And as simple as that sounds, it's not always a strength of the Bills. So tackle well. You got to, or else you're going to play right into what they're looking for, which is yards after catch and making people miss in the run game. Number 2 is the Bills have to be prepared to defend tight ends in a unique way. We talked about it already. 61% of the Steelers' passing plays, they have 2 tight ends or more on the field. Now, the Bills this year are unbelievably good at defending tight ends. They are allowing on average, I promise you this is factual, this is going to sound crazy, they're allowing on average 6 yards per game to tight ends. By far the lowest in the NFL. They are shutting down tight ends. Now, this is a different challenge. I got a feeling they're going to come in above that. They might get above that on one play, right? So you're going to be stressed in terms of how you cover tight ends in a unique way, and you got to get it done. In fact, there's only been 15 plays this year where the other team threw to a tight end against the Bills. It's nuts, right? Only 6 yards per game. It's a new challenge. So be ready to defend tight ends and understand that this is a different type of equation with the amount of volume and usage that they have for these tight ends. The number 3, I just have written down pass rush. How are the Bills going to manufacture pass rush? The Bills' pass rush is as cold as can be. Cold. The last 3 weeks, the Bills are 32nd in the NFL in sack rate at 1.2%. They're 28th in pressure rate at 27.1%. They're 29th in pressure rate over expectation at minus 4.07%. It's a pretty good offensive line against a quarterback that gets it out fast. How are you going to manufacture pass rush? Because you haven't had that answer since the Kansas City game. And in the Kansas City game, you had that Michael Hoyt guy, and it was a different ball game, right? Joey Bosa playing through a wrist injury. No Ed Oliver, no Michael Hoyt. The pass rush is ice cold. Aaron Rodgers is 26th in EPA per dropback against the blitz. I would suggest that Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott and Ryan Nielsen put their heads together and come up with some blitz packages to give yourself a chance to pressure Aaron Rodgers. So 3 keys: tackle, defend the tight ends, and figure out how you're going to manufacture some pass rush. All right, coming up next, we're going to dive into the Steelers defense, which has a lot of really big names, but boy, they have not been consistent at all this year. We'll talk about that next, folks. Be sure to stick with me. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Look, there's some great games on Thanksgiving. There's a Black Friday game. I definitely want to make those even more exciting to watch by having some prop bets for those ones. It's always a little bit more exciting when you have some action on the game. So check it out. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, folks, welcome back. Let's talk about the Steelers defense that's coordinated by Terrell Austin. 60 years old. He's been on the job for the last 4 years. He was the Bengals defensive coordinator in 2018. He was the Lions defensive coordinator 2014 through 2017. So 4 years on the job, including this year. The Steelers have had a top 10 scoring defense under Terrell Austin in each of his first 3 seasons, but it's not really looking like that's going to be the case this year. So far, they're giving up 24 points per game. That's 20th in the NFL. They're 21st in defensive EPA per play, 17th in defensive EPA per pass, 24th in EPA per rush. So 21st per play, 17th per pass, 24th per rush. They allow a conversion on third down 43% of the time. That's extremely high. That's 27th in the NFL. Decent in the red zone, 55% red zone touchdown rate. That's 11th best in the NFL. They run a lot of man coverage, 35% man coverage. That's the 6th highest rate in the NFL. They give you one high middle of the field close coverages 60% of the time. That's 6th highest in the NFL. And so that means that the Bills are going to have to win some matchups on the outside this week. We'll see how that goes. The Steelers do blitz. They blitz 31% of the time. That's 8th highest in the NFL, but their metrics are pretty poor. 29th in pressure rate, 22nd in pressure rate over expectation, but they are number 10 in sack rate at 7.1%. But this was the number that really stood out to me. They're number 1 in time to pressure at 2.38 seconds. So when they get pressure, it arrives quickly, 2.38 seconds, which is number 1 in the NFL. Let's talk about this personnel. On the defensive line, kind of their down lineman, Cam Heyward's the name here. He's old, but boy, he's playing at an elite level. He's aging like fine wine. The guy looks unbelievable. Big dude, impact playmaker against the run, impact playmaker against the pass. He's a game wrecker. He's awesome. Really good football player, and he's given the Bills a hard time in the past. Their nose tackle is Keanu Benton. Not your with Vince Wilfork nose tackle. No. That's not what this is. This is a dude. This guy can really move, gives you pass rush from the nose. Really good-looking football player. Young, out of Wisconsin, can rush, can defend the run. Now, after that, they got some problems because Derek Harmon, their first-round pick, would typically be their other guy and their 3 down fronts, and he's been ruled out for this game. And so they're going to have to lean into some depth. And I would guess Yaya Black, a 5th-rounder out of Iowa, will factor in, and Asizi Otomio will factor in as well. He's a 2022 5th-rounder out of Minnesota that's now been on 3 teams already since he's been drafted. So big day for Heyward and Benton is what the Steelers are going to need because they're going to be leaning into some more depth in that other spot. Their edge rushers, they got a heck of a group here. TJ Watt, obviously you know all about him. They also have Alex Highsmith. I don't know if he's going to be able to go this week. He missed games earlier this year with an ankle. He's missed the last couple with a pec. He was doubtful and didn't play last week. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to go this week. He's a really outstanding all-around edge rusher. And if he can't go, that'd be a big loss. But they do have Nick Herbig, who's a young player that they drafted in the 4th round out of Wisconsin a few years ago. That looks like he's going to be a high-end player. Anytime he's on the field, he looks really, really dynamic to me. So no Highsmith probably just means more Herbig, and Herbig's really, really good. But obviously the trio of Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig is what would make that really, really outstanding. But I still think they're in a pretty good spot with Watt, Herbig, Cam Heyward, and Keanu Benton as your core players that would be rushing the passer. They also have Jack Sawyer, a player they drafted out of Ohio State this year as a rookie that'll get some run, especially if Highsmith can't go. Their linebackers, Patrick Queen is their every down guy. He's athletic. He's kind of high variance. He'll make some plays. He'll give up some plays. But he has his splash moments that definitely stand out. But he's certainly got his share of blunders. Then they're going to play on early downs Malik Harrison, who's your classic downhill, thumping 3-4 inside linebacker, but they pull him off the field to go to Peyton Wilson on long and late downs, who's a much more complete player that helps them in coverage. And I think it's only a matter of time before it's him and Queen on the second level. He's a good-looking young player out of North Carolina State. So Queen will be there every down, then Harrison on run downs, and then they'll bring in Peyton Wilson. At corner, they have some challenges here because they have some injuries. Joey Porter Jr., who's their number one corner, good-looking young player out of Penn State. He did not finish last week with a hip injury. So we'll see if he can go. Last week, James Pierre started over Darius Slay. James Pierre's been a good depth player in the league, and he started over Darius Slay. And then, of course, Joey Porter got hurt against the Bears, which put Darius Slay back in the lineup. So I don't know exactly what the plan is going to be here for Pittsburgh, other than I think James Pierre will be one of the starters. If Joey Porter's healthy and can go, he'll start. If not, it'll be Darius Slay. And Darius Slay has really struggled this year. There's a reason James Pierre started over him. So late stage Darius Slay is not looking too hot. Then in the slot, it's Brandon Echols, who was like a 4-year depth player for the Jets that has become the starting slot corner for the Steelers and beat out that guy Beanie Bishop that everybody was raving about as like this undrafted free agent find last year. And he's not even on the roster anymore. And so Brandon Echols has kind of won that job. At safety, it's Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Duggar. They traded for Jalen Ramsey from the Dolphins. We know all about playing against him. He'll play deep alignments. Of course, he'll play some down low. And then they traded for Kyle Duggar from the Patriots, who the Patriots couldn't wait to get rid of. They've been trying. And he goes to Pittsburgh, and he fills this role of like a low safety. When I mean low alignment, playing in the box. That's kind of where he's going to be at his best, when he can just attack and play downhill. He's not a very good player in terms of playing from depth and having a lot of real estate to deal with. But when you get him in some lower alignments and he can just attack the football, he can find some success. So it's an interesting group defensively. There's definitely a lot of names here, but as a unit, they're not playing well. They're not performing well. They've been very, very inconsistent. That doesn't mean that they haven't had their moments. They certainly have. There's been times where you watch the Pittsburgh Steelers and all those names that we just talked about, they look really good, but there are other times where you just can't really reconcile the production that they give up. So what are my keys for the Bills offense against this defense? Number one is protection schemes. Obviously, a big conversation coming out of the Houston loss is 5-man protections. If you've been an everydayer on this podcast, we've been talking about 5-man protections for years, and they work until they don't. And obviously, it was pretty silly for the Bills last week against Houston to not have more in their inventory of what they were going to do to help protect Josh Allen. Well, this team is going to have Cam Heyward and Keanu Benton and TJ Watt and Nick Herbig. What's your plan? I don't know yet, but I'm guessing the Bills will not have Spencer Brown. So you're going to have a backup right tackle. And let's be honest, like Deion Dawkins has been having his issues this year. And Cam Heyward's a load to deal with. So you got to figure out your protection schemes. I'm guessing it's not just going to be 5-man protection schemes for the whole game. Number two is you're going to have to win some matchups on the perimeter. They're going to give you one high middle of the field closed. And that's going to tell you to throw the ball outside. Can you win some matchups? I mean, if it's Darius Slay and James Pierre out there, you better be able to win some matchups. Obviously, I think Joey Porter Jr. is a little bit different. But whoever's playing, Palmer, Coleman, Davis, you got to win some matchups on the outside. And then number three, you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball. Like the Bills, let's not forget, the Bills are a good rushing offense. You got to do it. They didn't do it enough against the Texans. The Texans invited it, and the Bills only gave James Cook 17 carries. The Steelers have given up the 8th highest percentage of explosive runs against them. So explosive runs are 15 yards or more. They're 8th highest in the league in giving those up. And they're very average when it comes to their run game metrics, whether it's stuff rate, success rate against, missed tackles. They're very average. Well, if you're really good at running the ball and they're really average at defending the run, you should probably try that. especially with some of your, well, at least my concern about how they're going to protect Josh Allen against Heyward and Herbig and Benton and Watt. So protection schemes, you got to figure it out. You got to win some matchups on the perimeter. You got to run the damn ball. Special teams, Chris Boswell's their kicker. He's unbelievable. Might be the best kicker in the game. I know everybody loves Brandon Aubrey, but Chris Boswell's freaking awesome. Has 7 seasons in his career of making 90% or more of his kicks, kicking in Pittsburgh. He'd have a 90% rate for his career if he didn't try to kick hurt in 2022 and had an uncharacteristic season. And I think he's made 1 million extra points in a row. Phenomenal kicker. Their punter is Corliss Waitman. He's been their punter this year and last year, 2022. He was with Denver. His metrics are solid. His hang time really stands out. He's top 5 in the NFL in hang time so far this year. And then the return situation, when it comes to kick return, Kenneth Gainwell will be the main guy. And then their punt returner has recently become Calvin Austin over like the last 4 weeks. He's their punt returner in previous years as well. And he's dangerous, right? He's really, really explosive. And so that's something to be mindful of. And the Steelers are the type of team that, you know, they might not make a ton of dynamic plays on offense, but they have what I've referred to throughout the years as the Steelers script, where they won't do much. They'll run the ball. They'll punt the ball a ton, but they'll get a big special teams play. They'll get a big play on defense. And the next thing you know, you lost a football game, right? It's a real thing. And so you think about the margins in a game like this, and Calvin Austin and the return game is something that you want to be mindful of, because that's part of that Steelers script, is getting some type of explosive return or a punt block or something like that. They just have a knack for those types of moments. So got to be on your P's and Q's for that. All right, folks, there you have it. My primer for Bills Steelers. We got a lot more to do this week. We'll do crossover Thursday. And then, of course, we'll do my final thoughts, injuries, all that stuff, predictions here to close things out. So, as always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills! And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.